guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and Sam here with a video I'm really excited for because my friend Sam from Sam Reads a Little did it about a month ago, I want to say, and some of my other friends have done this video since then, and it is the best and worst books from my absolute favorite authors. So I chat about my absolute favorite book by them and then my least favorite book from them, which is totally fair. You can have authors where you've absolutely loved books by them and ones that didn't work well. I think it's funny though, because like some authors were really hard to find a book I didn't love because I was like, have I rated anything less than 4 stars from them? Especially one, it was hard. So I will get to these books. They are my all-time favorite authors. You might know the answer to some of them, but I'm really excited. I'm also wearing my new Magnolia sweatshirt from Magnolia Parks and I love it. You may be wondering why a couple authors aren't on this list. It's because I've only read a couple of books by them and I feel like I didn't have enough to say like my favorite and least favorite. So like Magnolia Parks isn't on here because I've only read 1.5 books by that author, and a couple other authors too I've only read like 2 or 3, and I feel like that's not enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and just get to the authors and the books. So you kind of already just saw one. The first author is Gianna Darling, and of course Inked Lies is my absolute favorite. I've reread it, I've tabbed it, I've highlighted it. It's just, it's amazing. I love Lila and Nova so much. It is a brother's best friend romance and age gap. She did live with his family but not with him, so I don't know if I would say it's like foster sibling, kind of, not really, but I cried in this book. It's so emotional. I love Lila so much. She is such a fun character, and the fact that Nova will tattoo her, it is so good. These are motorcycle romances. You can read the series as standalones, but I definitely recommend reading in order because you just get more out of it. But this book just like hit so different than all the rest of them. Like, I love Welcome to the Dark Side. Lessons in Corruption is pretty good. Good Gone Bad, yes, but like once I got to this one, there was just something so special and different about it that I absolutely loved it. Unfortunately, my least favorite though is one in that series, and I think that this one is kind of a consensus. There's stuff in here. Oh. How did I not know I had fan art for When Villains Rise in here? But After the Fall, I did not love. I feel like this book, I don't know if it was like really necessary. This one is book 4, and it is Cressida and King's second book, and I just feel like it was kind of a filler book for the plot. I don't love revisiting couples in series. I loved Cress and King's first book, but this one, it wasn't what I wanted, and I know there's a plot in here that my friend McKay from Mo Hates McKay really hates this point of this book, and I just think it's funny when she rants about it. But this one, I just think that the series didn't need it, and I would have liked a different book by a different couple because there's so many couples in here that deserve time, and I didn't need this one. So I still love the series. That one's just my least favorite. Okay, so then I have Colleen Hoover. You guys should know my favorite book by Colleen Hoover is It Ends With Us. I read this as an ARC when it came out and was absolutely gutted reading it, cried reading it. It is so hard and heart-wrenching to read. It deals with Lily, who meets Ryle and ends up in an abusive relationship, and it is just her story, and I really love this book because of how emotional it is, and I love Atlas so much. I love seeing her past with Atlas and seeing how she deals with being in an abusive relationship, because Colleen has a note in here saying that she was inspired to write this because of her mother's own relationship and how hard it is to get out of that situation, because a lot of people are like, well, why don't you just leave? And they talk about that in here, and it was just very powerful. I love this book so much. But my least favorite I do own, but it is annoying to get to, so I didn't pull it out, and that is Without Merit. This one was just a very different tone than I feel like a lot of her other books, and it dealt with a younger character. I think she was still a teenager if I remember, and they lived in like this just reconstructed church, and like her parents were divorced and her dad was living with someone else, but her mom was still living in the basement, and it was bizarre. I didn't love it, and I don't remember a lot more about this plot because when I read it I was like, not for me. I do still own it. I own almost all of her books. I think I got to buy this book when she was on tour too, so that's why I have this, because I bought it to meet her, but not my favorite. I feel like you guys know the answer to my favorite book of all of these. Kiwi Tyler's next. You know I love Kiwi Tyler, and you know I love Forget Me Not. It is Amnesia. I've read this multiple times and tabbed this one too, and our hero and heroine are on the verge of divorce. He gets into an accident, gets amnesia, can't remember anything that drove them apart, and she shows up and she's like, I'm here to help you, but like, I don't know why you're talking to me like that, because we do not get along. And he's heartbroken and decides to win her back. And it does have to deal with infertility, so please know that before you read this, but so emotional. He is definitely a very alpha hero who it's his woman and he does not want anybody touching his woman, and I really like that. So this one is just very emotional and I loved it so much. It's so, so good. I know not everybody agrees, but this is my favorite by her. And my least favorite, I accidentally actually did a reel where I was talking about my top 3 books by her, and I accidentally included this one when I meant to include book 2 in the series. And McKay from Oh Hates, McKay was like, you liked that one? I was like, yeah, what are you talking about? It's Dad's best friend. And she's like, no, it's not. And I was like, oh shoot. So my reel was wrong, if you're wondering. I did not enjoy Spring Semester. So Spring Semester is book 3 in the series, and it's a really short, fun series. Like, I love the second book because it's Dad's best friend. This one is just like a very toxic, messy time. And the heroine and hero have been like hooking up since high school, even when they have other relationships. And so they're currently both in other relationships, still sleeping with each other, so they cheat all the time. And then they decide, you know what, we actually want to give this a try. Like, we really like each other, let's be together. And then the hero gets drunk, ends up kind of sleeping with someone else, maybe, I don't know, he can't remember. And then that girl says she's pregnant. And that's where the story goes. It's very messy. I mean, like, it's fun. I had fun reading it, but as like an endgame romance, probably my least favorite from her. Okay, we're just going through all my favorites right now. I just love doing this video. So the next one is going to be Catherine Cowles, who I love, and I have Reckless Refuge is my favorite. I just did a guide on her. I can link that down below if you want to. And this one is so, so good. I just talked about it in my wrap up, so this feels redundant because I just filmed that. But this one, our heroine is hiding out as a caretaker on this island because her brother is a psychopath and he killed her family, tried killing her, and now he's in like an institution. And she knows he'll get out because he's really good at like faking emotions, and so he can get what he wants. And she's like, he's gonna get out and come after me. And so she hides out on this island for this family. It's like their vacation island. They decide to sell the island to this artist. He is very damaged as well because his art in New York was being used by a serial killer as inspiration for his kills. So the hero is horrified. The serial killer gets caught. He decides to move to this island and keep her on as a caretaker, and they slowly start to fall in love. But then dead bodies start showing up on the mainland. So they're like, who is killing these people? And they're starting to look also like his art. So he's like, did they catch the wrong person? Is the serial killer still out there? Are they gonna come after us? Very romantic suspense, but a very, very sweet romance. And I love the whole setting of being secluded on an island. So love this one so much. Unfortunately, my least favorite is also in this series, and that is Perfect Wreckage. I think the reason why I didn't love this one is because I had to listen to the entire audiobook in one sitting, and I was not jiving with the story, and that made me hate it even more that I was listening to it in one sitting. I listened to this on a car ride. I was driving home from DC, and that's a 6.5 hour drive, and so I just like, oh my gosh, I was not having it. This one, they decide to hook up to, like, I don't love hook up to like end up being something more, and so that's kind of what they do. And he is a lawyer, and she inherits this house from someone, and it actually belongs to the family of an ex of hers, and so he is like trying to like fight her and get the house, and she wants to keep it, and this lawyer guy is gonna help her. And it was just like, it was okay. I just didn't love this one. I didn't love the premise. I think I still give it 3 stars. Like, it was still like a solid romance, but I was just mad that I had to listen to the entire thing. I could have switched to audiobooks, but I had like a TBR set, and I was determined to get through it, which it's my fault. It's my fault that I decided to continue listening to this like straight through, but I just didn't love this one, unfortunately. But her books are primarily 4 and 5 star reads for me. Okay, so the next one is one I literally had a hard time picking a least favorite by. That's Kennedy Ryan. My favorite book by Kennedy Ryan is Kingmaker. This duet is so good and so angsty, and it's like, it's always been you romance, though I love like all of her romances. So this one, the heroine is part Native American. She is protesting a pipeline going in on Native land, and the hero's dad is the one from the like company for the pipeline, and he doesn't really agree with what he's saying. They meet at the protest. They end up in jail together, but she's a little too young, and so it goes through their life as they meet each other at different stages, and they have this epic romance, and I loved it. So good, and like lots of action too, which I really like. Like, he goes to Antarctica for a certain point, and someone gets kidnapped at some point. It's so good. I am obsessed with Kennedy Ryan. Like, I've given almost every single one of her books 4 or 5 stars. I was looking, I have not given a single book of hers 3. So the one I'm choosing is one I haven't finished. I DNF'd it because of how emotional it was, and I never came back to it, and that is Blockshot. This one, something like really emotional was happening that was keeping the characters apart, and I I don't know why I put it down because I rarely put books down. I do want to pick it back up again, but I was just like, I just need something not as emotional right now, and I haven't picked it back up yet, but that's only the reason why this is this pick, because I have literally given everything else by her 4 or 5 stars, and I'm obsessed with her. So this one I would like to get to at some point, but so far I would say is my least favorite from her. And then we have Devney Perry, and I feel like I can't go a single, I did pick the wrong book out. I might have had the wrong book in my thumbnail now. I have not gone a week without talking about this book, but it's Garnet Flats. I do love Juniper Hill, but I meant to pick this book up. This one is a really, really good second chance angsty romance. Our hero broke up with our heroine when they were in college. I think they were in college. She was in college. He's a UFC fighter, and he is like really, really good. He trains in Vegas, and they were madly in love. She was about to move, and he's like, you know what? Nope, I'm not gonna go with you. I'm gonna marry your best friend because I love her. And she is heartbroken, and she leaves, goes to college, and moves back to her small town. And like 10 years later, our hero shows up. He's divorcing the best friend, and he's like, I'm here to win you back. And obviously he has to grovel. He's very determined to win her, and there's so much angst and so much tension, goodness between them, and I loved it. I will say she did forgive a certain character a little too quickly in here, but it was so angsty and so good. Like the angstiest that Devney has written. I'm obsessed. My least favorite is The Coppersmith Farmhouse. I am not a fan of this series. I think I liked like one book in this series, the Jameson Valley series, but this book, the hero was so domineering and alpha, and not in a good way. He would just make decisions for the heroine, and she'd be like, okay, and I'm like, girl, grow a backbone. Like, you are being so annoying and letting him throw you around wherever he wants, and I just did not like him at all. I remember listening to the audiobook, and I'm like, oh my god, and that's why it took me forever to continue on with the series, because I did not like book 1 that much, and the rest of the series is just like, it's okay. I'm not the biggest fan. Definitely my least favorite series by her. I think that Outpost is in this series, and I gave that one 5 stars. Like, it's really good, but the rest, they're just okay. Then I have Penelope Douglas, and I have 2 books in the same series because, again, their books, I rate all of them 4 or 5 stars. So the number 1 I think is Hideaway. I don't know what I like the best. Like, I feel like I'm gonna regret saying Hideaway, but so far it's Hideaway. Kai is my favorite. I absolutely love Kai and Banks' book. I love their romance. I loved everything about this, and it's just like dark romance, but like not super dark, and it's the 4 horsemen. They're all 4 friends, and they like play dark games, and it's just like really good. But unfortunately, the last book in the series was definitely not my favorite. I was really excited because Will is a character, I feel like he was just like kind of left to the side, because we got like such strong characters. We got Michael in book 1, Kai, who's my favorite, Damon, who's the anti-hero. You're just like, and then we get Will, and I just like feel bad for Will, especially what we see of him in book 3. And then this one, it was just like, it was okay. It was okay. It was way too long. Like, look how giant this book is. There was a really weird scene on a train. Like, siblings were in presence of one another, and they were doing stuff, and I'm just like, I can't with this scene. So it was just okay. Like, they were in this like prison locked together or something, but it wasn't a prison, it was like this house, and I don't know, it was just okay. I definitely expected more from this book, and I just didn't love it. Then I have Lorraine Heath. I did not grab my books by her because I didn't have enough time to scrounge for them, because I don't remember. Oh, they're all up there. Anyways, I love Lorraine Heath. I had to include a couple historicals on this list, and my favorite is the Earl Takes All. I almost said The Duke and the Lady in Red because I have given so many of Lorraine's books 5 stars. They're very angsty and pretty dark, and I'm obsessed with that kind of historical romance, but The Earl Takes All is very, very angsty because it's about twins, and the one twin is in love with his twin's wife, but he's not gonna do anything about it. But then the twin who's married dies and asks him to take his place so that his wife, who is pregnant, will not miscarry because she's lost a couple children before. So he's like, oh, okay, I guess I will. And so he comes back, and the wife is like, wow, you're so different. But I know you're mourning your brother, and she thinks that it's her husband that returned, but it's really his brother who's really in love with her. And it's just like so angsty and so good. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with Lorraine Heath. But there have been a few that have been misses for me, and I think the one I liked the least was The Lady and the Outlaw. This one was just really boring. The hero is an outlaw. He like robs a bank and he sees the heroine, thinks she saw him, so he kidnaps her, and she's actually blind. I don't think Lorraine's Westerns are necessarily for me, though I did like Never Love a Cowboy. I read the first book in her other Western series and I actually really enjoyed that one, but I'm really hesitant to continue on this series because this one was just really, really boring. Like nothing happened. He took her to where he's from and they hung out. And that's pretty much it. So that was my least favorite. Then we have Danielle Allen, and my favorite is Truth or Dare. I adore this book. This is my first book by her. It is a really fun wedding romance. They go to this destination wedding and they're in a friend group and they decide they like each other, but the bride is like, no, he is for my sister who's not getting a divorce and her heart's broken. So the heroine and him have to like kind of sneak around. She doesn't want her best friend to know. It is so good. I really, really love this one. It's such a fun, I didn't realize how short it was, but like Danielle Allen writes spice so well, and I really love her books. But my least favorite is probably Continuum, which had the least amount of like spice and plot to it. I don't even really remember too much about the plot. I know she had blue hair and I think it was a second chance romance, but I just did not care about these characters of this plot. The plot was pretty slow and I feel like it had the least plot out of all the books I've read by her, so not the biggest fan of this one, but I've read so many more of hers that are just so good. The tension and the chemistry between her characters is amazing, and this one really lacked that for me, so that's why I didn't love it. Battery is blinking, so let's finish these up. But we have Brittany C. Cherry. I have The Gravity of Us, which is my absolute favorite. I forgot to grab it, but this one I cried like a baby in. It's very emotional, Grump Sunshine, kind of forbidden. I don't want to tell you really anything else about the plot because it's best going in not knowing anything, but one of my favorite books of all time. I loved it. My least favorite though was Southern Storms. I'm pretty sure I don't remember anything about this book. At first I thought it was the other one, but the one with like the gray cover with the yellow font is the one I'm thinking about. This one, I can't tell you the plot, but I just knew I gave her 3 stars. So that's definitely my least favorite. I don't even remember when I read it, but this one I just didn't love. So yeah. Then I have Candy Steiner. You guys know my favorite is Love Letter to Whiskey. This is so angsty and it's one of her first books. So I feel like she has not written anything as good as this one. And this one's actually the reason why the next one's my least favorite, because she has not written anything this angsty since. And this one is about a couple from high school and they can never be together. It's always the wrong time. They self-sabotage. It's amazing. I need to reread it because it's been so long since I've read it, but I was obsessed when I first read this. But then she came out with Make Me Hate You and said it was going to be as angsty, if not angstier, than Love Letter to Whiskey. So I was like, yes, give it to me. And I did not like this book. I gave it 3 stars. I initially had given it 4 because I was like, well, it wasn't that bad. But I'm like, no, I really was disappointed. So I moved it down to 3. And they, I think, were dating other people. And there was no reason for them to be in those other relationships. So they were cheating on other people. And I just like didn't get why they just wouldn't be together. I don't remember too much else about that plot because I read that one like 2 years ago when it came out. But this one I just remember being so disappointed in because they were like determined not to be together. But they were being together. And I was just like, I'm not into it. Then I have Mariana Zapata. So this was really hard to pick a favorite, but I'm gonna go with All Roads Lead Here because of our Grumpy Roads hero, and I just really loved his son. I loved all the side characters in this book, and the heroine, she is trying to move on from a very long-term relationship that just ended, and so she is also trying to overcome the death of her mother, which she still doesn't really have closure from because her mother's body was never found. She just went missing on a hike. So her heroine hikes a lot. I love the setting of this book. She ends up renting the garage in Rhodes' house because his son put it up for rent, and so Rhodes was mad when he figured that out. But he's a grumpy, like, wildlife, I never remember the name, like a like patrol person. He like helps people in the wild. Wow, whenever I'm not filming I can instantly recall what that word is, but when I film I can never remember what it is. But I really like him and I love this book. But my least favorite is The Best Thing. This one I gave 2 stars. Again, I can't really remember the plot. I think that there was a lot of miscommunication, like she refused to tell the hero things and then she was mad at him for not knowing. I don't want to spoil it, but this one was a no for me, just no. Then we have Sophie Lark. We have 2 in the same series. If you guys have been watching me, you know what my favorite and least favorite are. We have Broken Vow, which is a cowboy bodyguard Grump Sunshine romance where the hero is the sunshine and the heroine is the grump, and she's a lawyer and it's amazing. They have to go and hide out on his family farm. I love this one because someone's trying to kill her, so he's her bodyguard. My least favorite is Savage Lover. This one was definitely the least mafia out of the whole series, and I just didn't care about the romance. I was very, very bored. And there was this heist randomly too that I didn't get, and so I wasn't connected to these characters and I just didn't love this book, unfortunately. I love Sophie's books though. Most of them I give 4 or 5 stars. This one and the last book of the series I think I gave 3 stars, but overall her books are amazing. And the last one I have is Lisa Kleypas. So the favorite of mine is going to be Love in the Afternoon. I think this is the most recent one I've read by her and it was just so good. It's epistolary, so she writes letters to him because he's in the military, but he thinks that it's someone else who's writing to him because she's writing under her friend's name. She's very eccentric, she loves animals, and he returns home with his dog from the war, and they fall for each other. Even though he thinks like he's going to marry the woman he was writing to, they start getting closer. But she was mad because he said something kind of rude about her, and she's kind of held a grudge, but it's so good. I love this romance so much. My least favorite was hard to pick, but I think it's going to be Devil in Disguise, which is one of her newer books, if not her newest, because I was pretty bored with the romance, and then it had kind of like a trope that really rubs me the wrong way. I don't know if it's a trope, but I don't want to spoil anything. She was supposed to not be able to do something and came to terms with that, and that was a big conflict in her ability to trust someone in like their relationship, and then it happened at the end. And I was really annoyed that that was, like, that had to happen for her to have her HEA. I was like, it doesn't have to. So I'm trying to be as vague as possible, but this one, I was also really bored with the audio, so I did not love it that much. And those are my favorite and least favorite books by my favorite authors. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you read any of these and what your favorite and least favorite by these authors are. I would love to hear. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.